अस्सलाम वालेकुम गाइस, कैसे हैं आप? उम्मीद करते हैं कि आप सब खैरियत से होंगे, खुश होंगे और हमारी दुआ है कि आप हमेशा खुश रहें, हंसते और मुस्कुराते रहें। मेरा नाम है रहमान अनवर
और मैं हूं ज़फ़र इकबाल।
और आज हम जिस वीडियो पर रिएक्ट करने जा रहे हैं, इस वीडियो का टाइटल है हाउ इंडिया विल टेक ओवर द वर्ल्ड इकोनॉमी इन 10 ईयर्स। तो देखते हैं भाई, बहुत अच्छी वीडियो है। अगर वीडियो पसंद आया तो लाइक सब्सक्राइब ज़रूर कीजिएगा और कमेंट में अपनी राय का इज़हार ज़रूर कीजिएगा। तो करते हैं वीडियो स्टार्ट।
Alright, so this is exciting. Let's talk about India. Home to the second most populous country with 18% of the world's population. Over 1.3 billion people live here, famous for things like Bollywood and its massive movie industry, the sport of cricket, which is known as the second religion, and it's the birthplace of yoga over 5,000 years ago. India is also home to one of the 7 wonders of the world, the Taj Mahal, and it has some of the most beautiful mountains, palaces, a rich culture of food, spices, silks, and they even gave us the world's most famous diamonds that have ever existed in human history, like the Blue Hope, which the Titanic diamond was based on. And it also happens to be home to the largest gathering of people on planet Earth, the Kumbh Mela. In 2013, over 120 million people came here to celebrate. And Mark Twain once famously said, "India is the cradle of the human race, the birthplace of human speech, the mother of history, the grandmother of legend, and the great-grandmother of tradition." India also gave us the game of chess, which was derived from an ancient game called Chaturanga. But there's a couple other interesting things about India you might not have known about, which is that its economy is set for explosive growth this coming decade. At the end of 2022, Morgan Stanley published a research paper on future investment opportunities, and in that paper, they wrote that India is on track to become the world's third largest economy by 2027, surpassing both Japan and Germany, and they'll have the third largest stock market by the year 2030. The research paper then goes on to say that India's GDP could more than double from $3.5 trillion that it's at today to over $7.5 trillion by the year 2031. And it also estimates that the Bombay Stock Exchange, which is India's stock market, could grow at 11% per year on average until they reach a $10 trillion market cap. Now, what the heck does all that mean? It means that India's stock market could outperform the US's over the next decade. And in a world that's waiting for a recession, the world that's experiencing negative growth in the equity market, where bonds are barely making any money for people, this could be a huge investment opportunity. And as somebody who has never invested outside of the US, as someone who's not an expert on this, I wanted to find out exactly what is going on. So in today's video, I want to share with you everything I learned and how I could potentially use this information to maybe make money from it. I'm super excited, so let's get right into it. Hi, my name is Andre Jick. Hope you're doing well. Come for the finance and stay for the crazy decade. So visualcapitalist.com has a really interesting prediction about what will happen in 2023. Like artificial intelligence, for example, will pop up everywhere. And we're seeing this already with tools like ChatGPT, which is taking over the internet by storm. Apparently the crypto winter will continue, and even though we're seeing Bitcoin slightly bounce up this year, it might not last. And that apparently global recession risk is still high thanks to interest rates increasing and staying that way for the rest of the year. And that real global GDP will be between 1.5 to 2% thanks to the slowdown in economic growth, and India will have a really strong year. And when I read that one, it led me down a rabbit hole where I found research papers published by banks like Morgan Stanley and S&P Global, which say that India will be one of only 3 economies in the world that can generate more than $400 billion in annual economic output growth from 2023 onward, and this will rise to more than $500 billion after 2028. Now that translates to 11% growth to the GDP. So is that actually good or bad, and how can you even tell? Here are some stats by comparison. In 2022, the US GDP was estimated to grow 2%. And this year, in 2023, if there's a recession, which most people seem to believe there will be, economists are predicting that 2023, the US GDP will grow 0.2%. Just 0.2. And it won't even recover until 2024, when we will grow 1.7%. Now, China, by comparison, which is usually the global leader in economic growth, grew only 3% in 2022. India, by comparison, though, is going to grow 6%. And remember, anytime there's an economic slowdown, it usually means people are going to work less, we're going to make less, we're going to consume less, therefore companies are going to make less, which is usually a bad thing for the stock market. So for India to grow at 11% over this next decade is pretty insane. So one of the questions I had is, why is India's economy growing so fast? And why is the rest of the world not? And how can I get in on this growth? Now, there's three main reasons for why this is happening: global offshoring, financial transformation, and energy transition. Global offshoring refers to when a country outsources its production to another country. Now, historically speaking, the world just said to India, here, have two of the most important things anyone can do: software development and customer service. But here's the thing. India has the biggest pool of talented engineers in the world. And India has one of the youngest populations in the world. The median age is 28.4 years old, which also really helps them boost their overall economic output. Now, India was also voted as the second biggest market for freelance hire by Upwork in 2020, having 12.6% of the market share. Now, the amount of people that are available for hire is estimated to double to more than 11 million people. And that's because the budget for outsourcing is going to go from $180 billion a year like it is today to over $500 billion a year by 2030. But it's not just customer service and software development. They're also building factories, which is why India's manufacturing is set to increase to 21% of their GDP by the year 2031. Now, the second reason why India is set to crush this next decade is gonna blow your mind. It's because of their digital transformation. In 2009, India came up with a program called ANWAR. This was a biometric authentication system. So by scanning a fingerprint, a retinal scan, or a facial ID scan, it made it easier for people to access programs like Social Security, to pay taxes, for banking, healthcare, and shopping. And because this program is now part of something called India Stack, which is a decentralized utility for payments, it made it a lot easier for people and businesses to apply for credit and loans a lot cheaper and a lot more efficiently than ever before. Now, this was an extremely controversial program when it came out, but a 2018 report found that customers actually got better prices and they waited less in line for their food. If a store owner, for example, tried to scam their customers by weighing their rice bags down with hidden pebbles and stones, people actually have the ability to downvote those stores because the government has the ability to shut down underperforming stores. This incentivizes India to build better businesses. Now, this system, as good as it sounds, may or may not work in the US for privacy and data collection reasons, but the point is India has a lot more people and they need to be digitized and brought in and onboarded much faster, which is why the US is much more privileged in this regard. But the point is India's coming up with some super innovative solutions that is helping supercharge their economic growth. And speaking of financial growth, the amount of households making $35,000 a year will go up from 5.6 million households to over 25 million households by the year 2031. And more income means more spending, which means in theory, India's stock market should go up. Now, the third biggest reason why India is set to crush this next decade is because of the energy transformation. It's estimated that at least 2/3 of India's energy consumption will come from renewable energy sources. As the world transitions from fossil fuels to renewables, India should see massive amounts of investment opportunities and innovations in this field, which will help them become much more efficient, productive, and of course, increase their income and overall economic output. At this point in time, it's pretty much unanimous, and all economists agree that India is set to crush and do really, really well this next coming decade. My question, though, is, knowing all of this information, is it possible for us to invest our money in a way that invests into this bright future so we can make a slightly higher return? I did not know the answer to this question when I first started making this video, but here's what I learned. So here's the best way to invest into India's crazy growth over the next decade. The secret is to buy India's, and that's how you make money really fast. That's how you become rich. Did my audio cut out? In all seriousness, some stocks in India are going to 10x. Some of them will 100x. But finding that one stock is almost impossible. So rather than trying to look for a needle in a haystack, it might be better to consider what are called ETFs, exchange-traded funds, which are bundles of stocks that look for a certain set of criteria. For example, the emerging market. And here are just some of the more popular ETF options people like to invest in to get exposure to India's stock market. But trying to find that one stock that's going to 100x your money and make you rich is not a skill that I have. I'm not an expert, and because I have nothing to sell you, I'm just going to say, I don't know which one it's going to be. But before you walk away and before you get disappointed, check this out. This is about to blow your mind. According to Barron's, if you had invested $1 million into the US stock market in December of 1992, today you would have roughly $9.2 million. It's a ton of money. But if you had taken that same $1 million and put it into China's stock market, that money today would be worth $600,000. Not $1 million, $1,000. And if you had taken that same $1 million and put it into India's stock market, today you would have $8.2 million. So still a lot of money, but not as good as the US. The US stock market could still do better over the next 10 years, despite the fact that India might have a higher growing GDP. How does that even work, right? This is because the GDP is not a direct correlation to how well the stock market does. In 2008, for example, the S&P 500, the stock market, lost 40%. But that same year, the US GDP was down only 4.3%. And then next year in 2009, the US GDP was down 2.5%. It's crazy. You would think that the GDP was a lot more connected to the stock market, but it's not. Now, on the flip side of this, the US GDP averaged less than 2% per year from 2008 up until this point. But the US stock market has averaged 9.15%, including dividends. Another example, in 2020, the US GDP was down 3.4%, but the stock market went up 18.4%. This happens because the stock market is so much more complicated than the GDP or the country's economic output. It also has to do with things like geopolitics, government support, social sentiment, interest rates, foreign exchange rates, central bank powers. It is so much more complicated than any one factor, and it's also why, even though China has had insanely amazing growth over the last few decades, the US stock market still did better. Now, because I don't know enough about world economics, I'm not going to invest my money into the success of another country because I don't know how that will translate to my own investment success over the long term, so I'm going to stick to what I know. And what I know is that the US stock market, which refers to this stock right here, VOO, has averaged between 7 to 9% per year, which is an incredible return, and I'm happy with that because it means I get to double my money roughly every 10 years. And I also noticed that every time I try to time the market or go outside of what I understand is usually when I end up losing money. Now, I can't give you financial advice because I'm not an expert, but I can tell you to smash the like button and subscribe for more fun videos like this one. As always, have a wonderful rest of your day. Smash the like button, subscribe if you haven't already. Don't forget to grab your free stocks. Links are all down below. And let me know how you're investing knowing this information. Are you going to do it different? Are you staying the course? Share with us your secret strategy. I'd love to hear it. As always, love you. Thank you so much for watching this video. I'll see you back here on Monday, Friday, sometimes Wednesday. See you soon. Bye.
See you soon. Bye. सही बात है भाई, लेकिन इस वीडियो में उन्होंने हमें बहुत अच्छी तरह एक्सप्लेन किया है कि इंडिया ने सबको पीछे वो कैसे छोड़ रहे हैं या आगे आगे कैसे जा रहे हैं, क्योंकि एक तो उनकी यंग पॉपुलेशन देख लें, ऊपर के जो सीईओ बने हुए हैं बड़ी बड़ी कंपनीज़ में वो कैसे आगे बढ़ रहे हैं, ये चीज़ें आप देख लें। और इस बार की जो IMF रिपोर्ट के मुताबिक 6.6% जो है ना भाई उनकी जो GDP है वो ग्रोथ है। अब देख लें कि जहाँ पर चाइना की भी इतनी नहीं, अमेरिका की भी इतनी नहीं, ठीक है, अगर इसी
अमेरिका तो बहुत पीछे रह गया यार,
बहुत पीछे रह गया। अब देखें कि ऐसे ही इंडिया अगर ग्रोथ करता है नेक्स्ट और इतनी और मेहनत करता है 2-3 पॉइंट तो बढ़ाएंगे, ज्यादा भी बढ़ सकते हैं।
अमेरिका में भी अब काफी इंटरनल मामले छिड़े हुए हैं ना भाई। शायद आपने डेली न्यूज देखी होगी तो आपको पता चल जाएगा, कोई उनके खुफिया कागजात मिल रहे हैं किसी से, कभी किसी से, उनका भी पंगा पड़ा हुआ है। लेकिन जो आने वाले साल है ना भाई वो इंडिया के 2000
का है।
अब जो एक मुल्क जापान को बीट कर रहा है तो आप क्या आप समझ सकते हैं कि वो स्लोली चल रहा है या वो स्लो काम कर रहा है या स्लो एक दिशा में जा रहा है? नो, क्योंकि जापान को बीट करना एक इकोनॉमिक लिहाज से ये सबसे ज्यादा एक चैलेंज है जो कि इंडिया पूरा करने,
खासकर ऑटो इंडस्ट्री में
जो कि इंडिया पूरा कर रहा है।
ज़ाहिर बात है, आप देखो ना यहाँ पे काफ़ी हद तक किरदार जो है ना वो अपने लोगों का होता है। ठीक है, आप हम ये चीज़ देखते हैं कि बहुत सारे लोग ये सोचते हैं कि यार देख लो वहाँ पे ऐसे ऐसे लोग जो है हुए हैं वो बजाय इसके कि अपने मुल्क में इस चीज के ऊपर खिदमत करें या इस चीज के ऊपर प्रीफर करें, वो बाहर चले जाते हैं।
हाँ।
ठीक है।
हाँ।
जिस तरह आपने देखा होगा कि ये सुंदर पिचाई साहब है या और भी 5-6 उन्होंने जिस तरह वीडियो में भी दिखा रहे थे कि वो कोई आगे उनको, तो भाई वो एक इतना बड़ा मसला नहीं होता। आप हो सकता है ये 10 निकले हैं और पीछे जो है ना वो 10,000 खड़े हुए हों जो अपने मुल्क के लिए कर रहे हैं, लेकिन ये कि उनका आगे निकलना जो है ना वो मुल्क के लिए बहुत जरूरी है। क्योंकि अगर वो उस वहां से उधर रह के अगर 5% भी अपने मुल्क के लिए कुछ ना कुछ हेल्प आउट कर, अभी आपने देखा वो आए हुए थे अपने मुल्क के अंदर
यार, आए हुए हैं, हेल्प ना करें। अब देखे ना कि पूरी दुनिया ये देखती है कि भाई 4 CEO बड़ी कंपनीज में इंडियंस हैं, ये चीजें देखती हैं लोग कि वो भाई वो इंडिया के है, वहां से आए और यहाँ पर वो CEO लगे हुए हैं, इस कंपनी में है। जब सुंदर पिचाई जी यहाँ पर आए थे तो भाई इंडिया में क्या खुशी का माहौल था। आपने देखा बहुत बहुत भाई एडवांस टेक्नोलॉजी उन्होंने दिखाई
ना। अपने जो देश आप मतलब कि जिस धरती पर आप जमे होते हैं ना, वो कभी नहीं भूलते। चाहे आप जितनी एक ऊंचाई पर चले जाएं या जितना आगे निकल जाएं, सुंदर पिचाई अभी भी एक इंडिया से जुड़े हुए हैं और वो एक मान करते हैं इंडिया पर। भाई उनको गर्व है।
आपने बहुत सारे लोग मतलब देखे होंगे। अब आप अपने मुल्क की मिसाल ले लें कि यहाँ पे जो है ना वो मुल्क के अंदर बैठ के लोग जो है ना वो अपने मुल्क के खिलाफ बहुत सारी चीजें कर रहे होते, बजाय इसके कि आपको एक स्टार मिला, आप इस हद तक पहुंचे कि आप एक आवाज बने अपने मुल्क की, तो उस आवाज को अपने मुल्क के लिए कुछ बेहतर करने की बजाय आप मुल्क के खिलाफ हुए पड़े हैं। अब आप उसकी सबसे बड़ी मिसाल देख लें कि हम काफी देर से जो है ना वो यूट्यूब के साथ अटैच हैं, वीडियो देख रहे हैं, लेकिन अभी तक हमें कोई ऐसा बंदा नहीं मिला जो अपने मुल्क के खिलाफ जो है ना अपने अदारों के खिलाफ, ठीक है हुकूमत को टारगेट करते हैं, लेकिन इस हद तक नहीं जाते कि अपने मुल्क की बदनामी करें। अब आप देख लें हमारे कैसे मेजर साहब हैं, वो पाकिस्तान के ऊपर कंटेंट बनाते हैं, आज तक उनके मुंह से, हालांकि आप उनको अपने मुल्क से भी खबरें मिलती हैं, ये नहीं कि नहीं मिलती, अगर वो कोई मसला मसाइल वहां पे आता तो उसको एक अच्छे तरीके से ट्रीट करते हैं, मतलब एक समझाते हैं कि ये इशू हुआ है, जिस तरह लास्ट BBC वाला हुआ था। ठीक है, तो मतलब ये कि वो वहां पर उनमें इस चीज का स्पिरिट है कि वो अपने मुल्क के लिए भेजी बहुत हद तक जो है ना वो बेहतर करते हैं। वहाँ पे पहली बात है यंग पॉपुलेशन है और आपको फ्रीलांसिंग या फ्रीलांस के हिसाब से जो है ना वो वहाँ पे बहुत सारी
एक जो लोग होते हैं ना, जब तक उनके अंदर एक शौर नहीं ना पैदा होता तब तक वो कुछ नहीं कर सकते। लेकिन आपकी एक ऐसी नेचर है कि एक आगे ऐसे सीढ़ियों पर चढ़ रहा है ना, तो पीछे से एक उसको 1000 गिराने वाला जरूर कि भाई ये क्यों तरक्की कर रहा है, ये इसके पास इतने ओहदे क्यों है। यार मैंने रियलिटी में ये चीजें देखी हैं कि कोई बेचारा किसी एक अच्छे काम पर लग जाए तो उससे बर्दाश्त नहीं होती, वो एक कातलाना एक मतलब कि दुश्मनी पर उतर आते हैं।
यार बाबर आजम है, क्रिकेटर कैप्टन है, ठीक हो गया, आप उसका क्या, उस बेचारे की गलती थी कि वो 4 दिन एक अच्छा खेला है या उसने परफॉर्म किया हमारे मुल्क की नज़र में, हम अपनी नज़र से देखते हैं, खैर दूसरों को शायद उसका इतना ना फील होता हो, लेकिन ये कि आप इस वक्त फिल वक्त उसके खिलाफ इतनी सियासत हो रही है ना, इतनी सियासत हो रही है, आपकी सोच है कि उसको इन्होंने मेंटली टॉर्चर कर के, हाँ अभी ये 3 फॉर्मेट का कैप्टन नहीं बन सकता, ये नहीं हो सकता, वो पुराने जिन्होंने करप्शन की उनको इन्वॉल्व कर रहे हैं कि ये किसी तरीके, मतलब ये कि किसी को ये आगे जाता देख ही नहीं सकते, तो इस तरह की इनकी नेचर है। तो बाकी ये मुल्क के लिए क्या करेंगे,
नहीं जाहिर भाई इंडिया इस लिहाज से आपसे ज्यादा
पर्सनली हो जाते हैं भाई, पर्सनली हो जाते हैं।
बाकी एक विराट कोहली जब परफॉर्मेंस अच्छी नहीं कर रहा था,
उन्होंने सपोर्ट किया भाई, इतने साल सपोर्ट किया, अब उन्होंने परफॉर्मेंस करके दिखाई है भाई, हम खुद उनकी तारीफ करते हैं जब भी क्रिकेट की बात होती है।
नहीं क्रिकेट को छोड़े, आप टॉपिक पर हैं इंडिया पर भाई आप,
लेकिन ये कि वहां पर ना मेरी बात सुने, वहां पर कंपटीशन बहुत ज्यादा है। कंपटीशन ऐसे है कि वहां पर एग्जाम होते हैं UPSC के, आप देख ले कि उसकी तैयारी हर टीचर करवा रहा है और उसमें पूरी दुनिया के ऐसे ऐसे क्वेश्चन है कि आपका माइंड इतना बड़ा हो जाता है खुलकर, इतने एक नई चीजें आपको सीखने को मिलती है। जाहिर सी बात है जो तैयारी कर रहा है वो इस चीज को भाई समझ ही सकते हैं। तो खैर,
लेकिन भाई ने या फ्रेंड ने वीडियो अच्छी बनाई है, क्योंकि आप पहले देखते थे कि हम गोरों की तारीफ करते थे, भाई अब लोग इंडिया की तरफ उनका रुझान है,
इंडिया की तरफ रुझान। काफी वीडियोस ऐसी भाई पड़ी और मैंने आज देखा, हाँ तो खैर अब देखेंगे। तो उम्मीद करते हैं आपको वीडियो पसंद आएगी, अगर पसंद आए तो लाइक सब्सक्राइब जरूर कीजिएगा और कमेंट में अपनी राय का इज़हार जरूर कीजिएगा। अल्लाह हाफिज़।